Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben.
This is Diego Sanchez, Randy Couture,
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. Dennis Shkaratov here with Kasper Rosalowski. It's episode 185, Wednesday the 17th of April. We are happy that you joined us. Or maybe we're joining you in the gym, on the bus, on the train, wherever it is. We are bringing a very, very sexy, hot, tasty episode of Submission Radio this week, Cass, and I can't wait to unleash the goodness.
That's right. Maybe you're in the shower, lathering up right now, listening to our baritone voices as you begin for the day. So thank you for letting us in your shower potentially. We got sexy guests. That's right, the sexiness continues. Feels like just the other day that we recorded our UFC 236 post-fight reaction. Here we are back again with sexy guests. We have Brett Okamoto going to be kicking off the show, talking about the UFC 236 aftermath, some of the other things happening in MMA this week, some of the storylines that have been coming from UFC 236 in the days afterwards. We have Al Iaquinta joining us on the program. Perfect timing to have Al on. He's fighting Donald Cerrone in what should be an exciting fight. Dustin Poirier is now the interim champion of his division. There's a lot of things to talk about with Al. We have Luke Rockhold returning to the program as UFC 205 or UFC light heavyweight debut is officially set against Jan Blachowicz. So we want to have him on the program, talk about that. Of course, we've got to ask him about Israel Adesanya this past weekend, winning against Kelvin Gastelum, who he's picking against Israel and Robert Whittaker. Also, Israel and Jon Jones, their fun little back and forth, so a lot to talk to Luke about there. And Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, the Reaper, whatever you want to call him, he's coming back to Submission Radio. If we're lucky, we're going to get him over Skype video. What a freaking treat. So, when we say they're sexy guests, you know that we're not lying, damn it, all right? The sexy guests are here, and there's plenty of them.
That's right, champion-level podcasting here on Submission Radio. And guys, before we get into it, just a quick announcement. We will be away for the next couple of weeks. Kasper is going to Thailand, so maybe he'll never return. I am going to New Zealand, a place with lovely green hills and wonderful people. So we will be away for a couple of weeks. We'll be back after that, so we apologize for the break. But quickly, Cass, if people can watch the stream on YouTube, they'll see I'm wearing the Submission Radio t-shirt. Look at this beautiful thing. I do a lot of things in it. I walk the dog in it. I get my food in it. I cry myself to sleep in it. And you guys can cry yourself to sleep as well in the Submission Radio merchandise. If you're watching on YouTube, look below. You can see the wonderful merchandise there. Rep Submission Radio and tag us on Twitter. We'll retweet it. Who knows? You might even get a cheeky message. We love seeing people wearing the Submission Radio merchandise. What a bunch of smart, nice-looking people, Cass, when they wear the Submission Radio merchandise. Who knows? If things go well, maybe there's a Submission Radio turtleneck around the corner. That could be the next thing.
I see people in the comment section making suggestions for merch. Someone had a suggestion saying, basically quotes from you and me, Dennis, going, I feel like it's kind of our trademark calling cards. There was points where we were talking about making merch with that said big fuck off super fight on it. I think that's good for the Aussie market. Wear it at your, local kindergarten or something. So if you have
Radio cunt shirt.
Submission Radio cunt. That's, yeah. I feel like Israel Adesanya would want royalties for that. Be like, hey, I brought the word back. But we can figure something out. If you have suggestions for what kind of merch you would like to see and what you would potentially wear and take photos of yourself in a sense, we can retweet it or repost it on Instagram. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Again, a massive thank you to the ridiculously nice things that you guys say in the comment section week in, week out. UFC 236 preview show, UFC 236 post show. It's just so goddamn positive, and I just love it. I love it all. I want to print them out and just wrap myself in a blanket of positivity and YouTube comments.
The nice arm comments wouldn't have gone astray, Kasper, from the post show a couple of days ago.
I was sending them to my mom, being like, look, people love me. She's like, you're dead to me. You do, yeah. Nah, mum was always harsh, but yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed those. And I enjoy writing back to everyone, who posts nice things and says nice things about us and our arms. So that's good.
That's right, Cass. And we know our listeners have nice arms as well. So if you have your nice arms out, why don't you jump on your computer and follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're all across it. You can slide into our DMs on Twitter. You can slide into our messages on Instagram. You can message us on Facebook. Again, remember to comment, share, like if you enjoy the program. we actually personally see everybody who shares and likes and comments on our social media, and on those cold days where no one cares about Submission Radio, the program, we'll get a nice comment or a nice share, and it's like, well, it's worth it. Giving up a career as a neurosurgeon at Alfred Hospital was worth it. Talk about this fight between Diego Sanchez. No, I'm kidding. But definitely jump on, give it a share, give it a like. We love seeing you guys. We'll actually interact with a lot of you guys that do share it. And I actually recognize, Cass, a lot of the guys that would share or comment or like our stuff. And we've got a little bit of a pen pal relationship with them all over the world. So add to the list, give it a share, give it a like, and check us out on social media.
Yeah, I feel like that as well in the YouTube comments. Sometimes when someone doesn't comment, I'm like, listen, you commented for 3.5 weeks, all right, and always on a certain day at this time. I basically know what you're wearing at this point. Where's the comment this week? What happened to that guy? And then I start getting worried. I'm like, should I call the authorities? Maybe they're in trouble.
Is he commenting on other videos, Casper? Other channels?
Well,
what is he?
Nothing would upset me more. But sometimes it'll be like the Luke Thomas show or Ariel's show. I'll see people commenting on them, and I'm like, I know that guy. I mean, I don't know that guy, but I know that guy. So it's a nice warm feeling. This nice community. Just quickly, I saw completely unrelated. You had this brilliant segue, Dennis, about the arms and social media. I have no segue. I saw Arj Barker last night. There you go. There you go. Secret's out. He is so fucking funny. And if you're in Melbourne and you want to check out the comedy festival and you're not sure who to check out, go see Arj Barker. Tell them Submission Radio sent you. You will be escorted out of the building, but at least you'll see some of the show. Seriously, hilarious stuff. You've seen his stuff on Flight of the Conchords, you'll love it. I think his last show is on Sunday, and I was like, I can't really do anything for the guy, but I can spread the word here about Arj Barker. Hilarious dude. Anyway, we got a sexy show. We got sexy people to speak to. Brett Okamoto, Iaquinta, Luke Rockhold, Robert Whittaker wrapping up this juicy show. We have our first guest on the line. It's rude to keep him waiting. Dennis, I believe you are about to introduce him.
Joining us next in the program is a man coming off another great week of coverage, the UFC 236, killing the game for ESPN by way of Colorado State. There's talks of this man playing Mr. Freeze in the next Batman movie because he's so damn cool. How about that? Brett Okamoto, welcome back to Submission Radio, the Mr. Freeze I've ever made. It's great to have you back on the program.
Great to be back, man. The compliments are always good. That's why I love coming on the program, man.
Yep, that's what we're here. It's all about the introduction, make everybody feel warm and happy. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the great Skype quality as well. First of all, great job at UFC 236. Some fantastic content as usual. Tell us, where does that sort of Israel Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum fight rank for you now that you've had a few days to process everything in terms of best fights you've covered live? And I believe you were cage side for that one as well. You were covering from press row.
I was, yeah. I snuck out there. This year I've been watching a lot of the fights in the back. But I said before the last two fights started, I was like, any UFC card this year that we've already seen or that are even on the books, like if you look ahead at the rest of the schedule, like this is the best card so far. This is the best co-main combination of the year on paper. I just didn't really see how those fights could go wrong. And then obviously they even surpassed expectations. I mean, as far as where Adesanya and Gastelum rank all time, I mean, man, I'd put it right up there with my favorite fights of all time. I mean, when I think of some of my favorite fights, Jones and Gustafsson is obviously up there. The Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard second fight has always been probably my favorite fight of all time. Just Edgar coming back from that first round and battling back, and it was a draw, and you could have even scored it for Frankie after a terrible first round. Yep. Those are the ones that stick out to me, and this one is going to be right on that list.
I'm just wondering, Brett, people, sorry to jump in there, Dennis. People talk about, obviously the heart of Adesanya, the championship level, I guess, mentality. Do you get to absorb that when you're on press row? Do you get to absorb that? Do you see, I guess, the mental battles going on in someone's eyes, in someone's face? Can you read that when you're that close? And I guess, does it make it even more special to see a guy come out and, have such a dominant first round after, taking some damage earlier on?
Yeah, I think that there are positives and negatives to seeing it in the arena and then watching it on television. I mean, there are just, like I've always said, I think scoring a fight is easier on television just because you can see a little better. You're not distracted by some things. I mean, when I'm in the arena, taking notes or glancing down at Twitter, or like the crowd may distract you, and just like the angle if they're over on the other side. But if you watch it on television, you can see everything really unfold, and you can score a fight better, in my opinion. But as far as what you get in arena, I mean, obviously you're there and you're absorbing sort of the energy that's in the crowd, and you're getting that sense of it. But I just feel like you also get a lot of like the weight of the shots too. Like, it's one thing to watch it on television and you see the swelling and you see the blood and you're like, man, these guys are really going at it and they're both taking a lot of damage. But to actually be there and to like feel like the thud of some of those shots that they're absorbing, I think it gives you a better appreciation of just, the physical damage that these guys are taking during a fight like that.
So just on that fight, Brett, there was a moment there where Kelvin Gastelum was having some success. It looked like Israel might have been on shaky legs, and then he sort of decided to grapple with them. A lot of people sort of criticizing that moment in the fight, saying that if Kelvin approached it differently, maybe he could have gotten the finish. What was your perspective on sort of what he did there? Do you believe it was a mistake? Do you think it could have led to a finish?
I think it was a mistake, yeah, but I think you do what you drill. When you're in the octagon. So I'm sure that Gastelum, I mean, he's to a certain extent you get on autopilot. I mean, you think about the shots that he had taken, and then I can't remember if that was the third round or the fourth round, but just you're already starting to get. I mean, fatigue is setting in. You're not thinking about a whole lot of things. You're not thinking and some of the great ones are able to do that. Some of the great ones are able to recognize something and really capitalize on something. But I think in that situation, I think Kelvin was just doing what he drilled to do. And that's if you get a talented striker trapped up against the fence like that, and his hands are up, as Izzy's was, because, he's covering up, that you got an opportunity for a takedown. So I think that was just, Kelvin's autopilot kicking in more than anything.
Of course. Of course, now the fight to make is Israel versus Robert Whittaker, or Robert Whittaker versus Robert Israel. I'm an idiot. Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya is what I was trying to say. That's the fight to make. But, Israel's had such an active schedule, and he's fought so often, and after this fight, such a grueling war, you got to think that he needs to take some time off. August seems to be the plan. We're hearing Sydney possibly in a stadium. But if Israel does need to sort of take a little bit of time, what do you do? How do you navigate this if you're the UFC? Do you try and push him into the fight a little bit earlier? Is there a way that you think that they might just say, look, you know what, we'll come to Australia a month later? How do you navigate this?
Yeah, well, that's not really a question that I can't give you the exact answer on that, just because in terms of, finding the stadium and getting the right plans in place to host a pay-per-view event, and how it potentially impacts, some of the other deals that you have, or even, their pay-per-view deal here in the States now. Every event it has to be purchased through ESPN Plus, so then they have a partner there that has a say in, when can you hold pay-per-view events. So I can't tell you all the ins and outs of how that comes together, but what I can tell you is that I, as a fan, want to see Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya at his very best. And I can't see how Israel could be at his absolute best by August. I will say that. I think that he could be ready by then, if he had to be. But speaking to his team after the fight, that night, and even before the fight, I mean, the idea was like, hey, I mean, we can't just jump back into this. Not only you think about the physical nature of the fight that he just went through, and the fact that he fought 6 times in the last 14 months. You guys know this just as well as anybody. The mental fatigue of promoting fights. I mean, he's gone through now an Anderson Silva fight and a co-main event in Australia that actually got promoted to the main event at the last minute. Now he's done an interim title fight with a lot of media to carry. And then if you're going to have a stadium show, you guys know the amount of hours that he's going to have to dedicate just to promote that fight. So as much as I want to see the UFC capitalize on this and to not waste too much time, and plus we just want to see Robert Whittaker fight because it's been a while because of the injuries he's gone through, I hope that the fight doesn't happen in August because I want to see Adesanya at his best, and I don't know how it could be that soon.
It's an interesting situation because you got Jacare there. He's fighting soon. He wants a title shot. The UFC have made some promises to them. Let's just hope that that Whittaker Jacare fight isn't the one that comes together because Israel isn't ready yet. But speaking of the Israel Whittaker fight, just looking at the matchup right now, Brett, without breaking it really down and watching tape on both guys and really doing the research that you usually do before these fights happen, Who do you favor right now if you think about the matchup between Whittaker and Israel?
I favor Robert still, and it's not by a wide margin. But I think that, and hey, you heard Whittaker say a little bit of this if you watched his interview on Ariel Helwani's show yesterday. Is that Kelvin showed that Israel can get hit. I mean, coming into this fight, it was like, wow, Izzy is just such a polished, refined striker that. How is anybody going to stand with him? And then Kelvin did. Kelvin had a lot of success standing with Israel. So you're taking what he's known for and what he's great at, and it's showing that there is holes that you can puncture through that. And I think Robert Whittaker is a guy who can find holes and land shots. And I think he's the type of guy that if he does get Israel hurt, he's that type of special, champion cut cloth is that he would take advantage of it. But I mean, Israel showed that he was as well. I mean, that 5th round, you're talking about a guy who was undefeated, had not gone through a ton of adversity so far in his UFC career, and then was faced with a whole lot of it. He was faced with a ton of adversity going into a 5th round, and it turned out to be arguably the best round of his UFC career thus far. So that shows that Israel is also very special, which is why we're all excited to see this fight, because you do have 2 special middleweights in these guys.
100%. On a bit of a side note, I guess a side narrative creeping up on the sides throughout this whole thing, it was Israel Adesanya versus Jon Jones. Of course, nobody expected that this was going to be happening anytime soon or around the corner, but I guess what did you make of this whole saga? Jon Jones is kind of in a point now where he's fighting guys that people are finding it hard to get excited for, and then in comes Israel making big waves. He sort of attached his name to it. After this fight, though, after the Kelvin fight, Jon Jones was very critical, and he doesn't seem to, be too interested in Israel Adesanya. What did you think of that entire saga, Brett?
Well, I mean, maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but I think if I had to guess, I think neither guy is actually very serious about the fight. I mean, I think, don't get me wrong, I think Israel probably would be crazy enough to take on Jon Jones. He's got that level of confidence about him, and I know that Jon Jones would look at him and say, I can beat this 185er. I can throw him down and do whatever I want with him. But I think probably both of them, deep down, if they were being brutally honest, would say, yeah, I mean, that fight's not even anywhere close. So they're doing almost like, remember back long ago when we thought that Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor were just talking online because it's just like, oh, sure. I mean, they could go ahead and throw it out there, even though it'll never happen. It's beneficial to both of them because it just keeps them in the headlines. Well, then that fight actually happened. I think we're actually seeing that for real here. I don't think either one of these guys truly thinks this fight is going to happen. At the very least, they know it's not going to happen anytime soon. But to have this little rivalry back and forth, it actually helps both of them because, like you said, Jon Jones is fighting guys who, hey, I'm excited to see him take on Thiago Santos, but am I going to sit here and say that it's a super fight? Am I going to sit here and say it's one of the most intriguing fights that Jon Jones has ever had? Probably not. I mean, he's just kind of cleaning out the 205-pound division. That's what he's doing right now. So to kind of link himself with the hot guy right now, who is Adesanya, it's good for both sides.
I found it funny how Jon Jones sort of bookended one of his tweets about Israel with, oh, by the way, I'm fighting UFC 239. Yes, Santos should be a great fight. It's kind of like the clearest form of promotion I've ever seen. Let's talk about Max Holloway's loss to Dustin after a gutsy performance. What do you think happens for Max Holloway next? Do you envision him returning to lightweight again in the near future?
I still think his future eventually is going to be at lightweight. I mean, he's 27 years old. He's going to fight at lightweight consistently later in his career. But as of right now, I think he's going to go back to featherweight. And I said this the night of the fight that I would be perfectly fine if he just stayed at lightweight. You think about all the matchups that he could have at 155 pounds. I don't relish the idea of seeing Max cut to 145 again. It slightly makes me uncomfortable. I know that he can do it, and that he, when he's made it to a fight, he hasn't ever missed weight. Technically, he has not missed weight when he gets to when he steps on the scale, and he's confident he can do it. But I would like to see him at 155 personally. I think that there's a lot of great fights there for him. I don't see anything waiting for him at 145 that he absolutely has to go back to. But the way this sport is, he's not just going to drop his belt. I mean, that's an impossible decision to make. I feel like, you work so hard to become a UFC champion. It's rare to become a UFC champion. There's so much value in being a UFC champion that you're not just going to willingly drop a belt. I think Max will go down to 145, and I think that Frankie Edgar will be his next fight.
And you spoke about it on our show a few months ago when this fight was originally announced, that you believe the UFC shouldn't be doing any interim belts at featherweight in the meantime, and Max should sort of be given a chance to go back down. And as you've sort of explained now, it was the perfect choice, and it kind of worked out well that he is still the champion and can go back to that. On the flip side, Dustin, very interesting skill set, obviously got the win. Now he's the interim champion. Do you think that he ends up being the guy to fight Khabib later in the year? I think September is kind of what we're hearing. Khabib seems keen. Dana White says he's keen. I just feel like when it comes to the lightweight title picture, anything involving Khabib, Conor, or even Tony Ferguson for that matter, it's just very hard to believe that it happens until, people are actually looking across from each other in the cage.
Yeah, I don't blame you for feeling that way, but I do think that Dustin will be next for Khabib. I think that if the UFC were being brutally honest with us all, that they would have preferred Max Holloway to win. I mean, it sets up a guy who would have been on a 14-fight win streak against the undefeated, unbeatable, force in Khabib Nurmagomedov. It would have been a champion versus champion fight, of course. I mean, they'd be lying to you if the UFC said, no, we're real thrilled that Dustin Poirier won. But at the same time, I think that they were aware that it was a possibility. I don't think anybody, even people who really love Max Holloway, which is mostly everybody, it's not like most people were like, oh, Dustin just doesn't stand a chance in this fight. I think we all went in with our eyes open on that, saying, hey, Dustin is a very, very good fighter. He could win this. And I think the UFC knew that. And I would hope now that they're comfortable with that like, hey, he's got an interim belt around his waist, so we can't go in another direction. And if they went in another direction, what would it be? If it was Conor McGregor, that would just be such a bad reflection on where the sport is right now. I get it. I understand how much leverage Conor has, and I understand how important he is to the business. But to do a rematch right now would really just reflect poorly on the sport in general. Tony Ferguson, is we still don't even know exactly when he's going to come back. Dustin Poirier has absolutely earned it. I think the UFC wants to stand by that. I do think, despite what a lot of people think of the UFC, of course, they're always looking for those big fights. I mean, why else would we be talking about Brock Lesnar? But I also think there's a very big part of them that wants to maintain the integrity of it and then wants to get it back to some semblance of order, and especially that lightweight division that has just been held hostage for so many years. I believe that we will see Dustin Poirier fight Khabib Nurmagomedov.
It should be a very interesting fight, because now that people are thinking about the fight, they're thinking about Dustin's skill set. And a lot of people are sort of talking about that this might be the right skill set to beat a guy like Khabib. What kind of chances would you give Dustin in this Khabib fight?
I give him as much chance as I give most lightweights, and that's a positive thing. I mean, I still think Khabib is favored. I think everybody would say that, just because of the skill set that he brings. It's so unique and it's so dominant. But what does Dustin Poirier have going for him? Well, he's extremely experienced at this point. I mean, the guy has just tons and tons of experience, which I think is important when you're talking about facing an undefeated guy, potentially in a hostile territory, in Abu Dhabi. The travel that's associated with that, the amount of eyeballs associated with that, the spotlight, that feeling of this guy's got no chance because he's going against Nurmagomedov. I mean, experience helps in all of that, right? And even though he didn't knock out Max Holloway, I think Dustin has shown power. He's finished Eddie Alvarez. He's finished Justin Gaethje. I think Dustin has that type of condensed, accurate power that can stop a guy in his tracks a little bit. I mean, we saw that. I mean, Max Holloway's pressure is very, very different than Khabib's, right? But we saw Max Holloway's pressure affected by Dustin Poirier and the power that he was able to land, and the fact that he was able to land consistently and take him out of his rhythm. That can also apply to a wrestling style as well. So I think if you're looking for ways to find hope for Dustin Poirier, I mean, look no further than he was able to really disrupt the striking rhythm of a very, very talented guy like Max Holloway. Why couldn't he disrupt the wrestling rhythm of a guy like Khabib?
It's definitely going to be very interesting. Now, Brett, before we let you go and as we wrap up, just quickly, a couple of questions on the president himself, Dana White. He mentioned recently that he signed a new 7-year contract to stay with the UFC. Have you heard anything behind the scenes when it came time for him to sign this contract? Do you anticipate that this is another situation where it's just going to be 7 years and then he's going to re-sign on the dotted line, or do you believe this could be the last 7 years that we see Dana as a part of the UFC?
I think it's probably too early to tell. I mean, I will say that what I do hear from behind the scenes and what I do, observe just on my own is that Dana's, passion for this sport is still at an all-time high. He still works tirelessly. He has given up certain responsibilities, or just he's not as involved in certain things that he used to be involved in. But not. That just means that some of his attention has been turned to other things. I mean, he's still his role has somewhat changed, but it's still the same as far as how hyped he gets about this, how much. What was the big question that we had 2 years ago is that this guy made so much money in the sale of the UFC, is would he still be motivated to come into work every day? And I can tell you, even though some of his attentions has been redirected to different things, when he starts going and he starts talking about the future of this sport, it's the same as it was 10 years ago when he did that. So does that mean he's going to stick around for another 20 years? I don't know, but I can say that he does not give off the impression as somebody who's, thinking I'll just do this 7-year contract and then I'll be out of here, or even before then.
Not at all. And he did say some things at the presses recently this past weekend that it sounds like he's unveiling something in the next couple of months, and he teased something big. I mean, it sounded the way he was talking about it like it was something monumental. Any ideas, any guesses on what that might be? I know here we're kind of throwing out Zuffa Boxing as a guess. He said it's going to change combat sports forever. What do you sort of make of that, Brett?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the new facility that they're building. They have this headquarters at here in Las Vegas, and then they bought the lot that was right next door. And just within the last few weeks, you've seen that building be changed into UFC branding. It's almost like it happened overnight, and there was a big UFC letters on it. And that's where they're going to have future seasons of The Ultimate Fighter. If that does in fact continue, that's where they'll have the Dana White Contender Series. They're going to have a studio there, like an actual full television studio where they can, churn out content. I think if I had to guess, it's more of just a content. They're just going to churn out content, promotional videos. Just make people more aware of the fights and that they're happening and the stories behind those fights, and just really up their presence as a promotional tool. That's what my guess would be as to what he's referring to.
Because at the Performance Center, obviously, there's the Chuck Liddell room, the Ronda Rousey room. I feel like at this new establishment, there should be a Brett Okamoto room, just with posters of Brett's past interviews and photos of him wearing shorts and a suit jacket on an ESPN broadcast without anybody really realizing it. I think there should be a whole wing to that. But Brett, with that, we appreciate your time. Guys, make sure to follow Brett for all the latest MMA news, interviews, and event coverage at Okamoto ESPN on Twitter. It's become the must-follow account for all MMA fans around the world. So after you finish listening to this interview, jump on, give it a follow. You'll appreciate it. And Brett, we appreciate you coming to the program. Can't wait to see what's next. As always, it's an honor and a pleasure for us to have you on Submission Radio.
Oh, it's fun, guys. And maybe I'll make it out to Australia twice this year.
How nice would that be?
Hang out twice in 2019. Yeah.
We'd love to have you, man. It'd be absolutely our pleasure. Thank you so much for the time, Brett. We'll definitely speak to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys, our next guest is the number 4 ranked lightweight in the UFC with a huge fight coming up against Donald Cerrone in UFC on ESPN Plus 8. It's a pleasure to welcome raging Al Iaquinta back to his home at Submission Radio. Al, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we made this work. I was a little out of it after jiu-jitsu practice tonight, but we made it happen. Thank you guys for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
The viewers won't know this, but Al spent like 15 minutes building a contraption, getting the Skype ready, getting the angle right. No one's ever this nice to us. No one ever put this much effort.
I had to download Skype. It's on a shoebox on top of a box set of Game of Thrones on the table, leaning up against a salt and pepper shaker. We made it happen. For you guys. I that's how much I love being on the show, and you guys are the best. So Thank you so much for having me.
How nice is that? I want to hear Bruce Buffer introduce you as the MacGyver of MMA when you take on Donald Cerrone. Got to ask, normally when we interview you, I think, I don't know if you're at your house, but you've sometimes got like a real estate background. Where are you joining us from now? You look like you're, where are you?
I'm at my parents' house right now. We got the Islanders, the New York Islanders. They're hopefully going to sweep the Pittsburgh Penguins right here. They're up 2-1. Pittsburgh is and now my dad's yelling. My dad's watching the game. He's saying, "Talk to them. We'll talk to them." We got this.
I was gonna say you look like you're at parents' house. Is your mom the kind of mom who like cooks like a classic Italian dish? Is that why you're there, Al? Are you there for the food? Be honest.
Yeah. You called me out. That's why I'm here. No, I love coming here. They always have good, healthy food. They're always making good, healthy food, and they look out for me. So after training, especially now the Islanders are playing, my family's always been big Islander fans, and they haven't been too good in recent years, and they're looking pretty good right now. So it's exciting stuff.
Well, while we're getting your reaction to different things, give us your thoughts on UFC 236. In particular, this battle between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier for the interim lightweight belt. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a very exciting fight. It was just nonstop back action the whole time. I think Max it seemed like he lacked the power that Dustin had. Every time Dustin would connect, it would hurt Max, and especially in the early rounds. And then I have to watch it again because I was watching with a bunch of people. I was into it, but I like to really sit down by myself and watch it and hear the commentating and everything. But it just seems like Max didn't have the power that Dustin had, and Max was content on just boxing. And when the boxing didn't work out, he kept with the boxing. He didn't really have. It didn't look like he had a plan B. There was no other. There was nothing else, just that. So, I thought Dustin won the fight. I think the shots that Max landed really didn't hurt him at all, but Dustin definitely put him in trouble a few times.
What do you think it does for the division now that Dustin is the interim champion, and kind of seems like things are moving along a little bit in lightweight?
Yeah, it seems like they're gonna fight in September, and then keep rolling on from there. It's exciting. It's an exciting time. The division was all crazy, and now I guess it's kind of getting some structure. So it's exciting, and I'm enjoying seeing what's going on above me and looking forward to. I have tremendous respect for both Dustin and Max, but I really think that if I was in there, either way, I think it would have been a good night for me.
Well, people are talking about Dustin, that he might have the right skill set to beat a guy like Khabib. What do you think? Do you think he could get it done if the fight does go down between him and Khabib in September?
He's you never say never, but I would think Khabib with the wrestling, that's a huge X factor. That's something Max didn't really have. Even when you're just worried about the wrestling, that opens up Khabib's striking. His striking is good. He's got a unique style. And the wrestling he knocked Conor down. You would never think that would happen, but that really is set up all because of his wrestling. He can get the guy worried about the wrestling and then switch it up to kind of fake the takedowns, come over the top, stuff like that. He's got a couple different layers to his game, and I think that's a huge problem to deal with.
What would be the better scenario for you, Al? If Dustin comes out on top, you get a fresh face, a guy that you've never been able, you never had the chance to prepare for. But if Khabib wins and retains, like a lot of people expect, you get to get that rematch that you've always wanted. What would you rather between Dustin and Khabib?
I'd want to train for Khabib, get that one back. I think that's the fight that I really want to. I hopped in there. I'd never been in a 5-round fight. It happened so quick, and I was fighting a guy that was at the top of his game for a very long, at the top of the game for a very long time, undefeated, undisputed. So I was thrust into there, and maybe I wasn't as ready as I should be. But now I know I'm ready. I don't make the same mistake twice, never. So I think that things will be a lot different. Even if I did get the fight on a day's notice now, it'd be way different.
How would you see it sort of going differently? The Al today getting that fight compared to the Al that had the fight with Khabib back then?
I think my wrestling is I wasn't really training for a wrestler. I think my wrestling's up there, and people don't, especially my timing with the takedowns. There was a few times where I even got it in on Khabib, and I didn't follow through with that. It's only going to take a few small changes to really make that fight a big difference. And the one thing will definitely be the confidence in my cardio to go 5 rounds, because now that would be an advantage. At the time, I didn't think it was an advantage. I was only training for a 3-round fight, and I wasn't pushing the pace. I was not exploding out of some positions because I wanted to save a little bit in case it went the distance. But now I know that the cardio, the 5-round, I'm a 5-round fighter. The longer the fight goes, the better I am. And I think that is something that definitely plays into my favor.
Just quickly, while we were just talking about UFC 236, in the back in the media room, Justin Gaethje spoke to the media there, and he mentioned that you won't fight him and that you're scared of him. What do you make of those comments? Did you see those comments from him? And what do you make of him sort of saying that?
I did. I saw it. It's I'm definitely not scared to fight anybody. You know what I mean? I'm not scared. But what I am scared of is not getting paid the right amount of money for a fight. Like I have a number for what I'm worth, and if they're not going to pay me, which they weren't, I'm not going to fight. And if I'm taking a fight on shorter notice than I want, and I'm coming off a fight with injuries, then I'm going to ask for more money. It has nothing to do with my opponent. It has to do with me. So I'm not scared to fight anyone. I think that he kind of made himself look a little stupid, because I think the people know that I'm not afraid to fight anybody. But what I won't do is undervalue myself. And Justin Gaethje is a guy that talked a lot about what he wanted as far as his contract. And, he's not getting what he wants, but he still goes in there and he still fights the way he fights, but he's not getting paid what he wants. And I think that he's doing himself a tremendous disservice in the way he handles himself in that regard. So, I think maybe he should be a little more scared, and maybe it would benefit him financially, because he wants to get paid all his money up front. I think if I was managing Justin Gaethje, he would have what he wanted, but I don't think he wanted to do it his way, and it's worked out for him so far. So good for him. But if he really wants what he wants, he's got to be the one that he sounds a little scared.
You mentioned short notice. When did the UFC want you and Gaethje to actually fight each other?
It was after the Khabib fight. I had pulled. There was something in my shoulder. I had what is it? Labrum. A slight labrum tear. Nothing. I didn't need surgery or anything, but I did get PRP injections. And then they came to me about the fight, and I gave them a number, and they weren't really matching me on the number, and I started training for the fight, and my shoulder just wasn't holding up. You know, if they would have paid me enough to kind of make it worth it for me, I would have pushed through it. But there's a lot of stress that goes into this thing, and to take a fight, not that it was like really short notice, but coming off a fight like that with Khabib and having the injuries that I had, getting the PRP injections and getting paid not what I wanted to get paid, it all goes into the equation. You know what I mean? And the equation just wasn't in my favor. So it is what it is. I don't care about Justin Gaethje. I care about myself. And you can say I'm scared of him, but I'm not. I think everyone knows I'm not scared. I go in there and freaking a day's notice with the toughest guy in the division. I'm not scared of anybody. So he made himself look a little stupid with that remark. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, when the pay came out for UFC 236, fans kind of got reminded how little a lot of the fighters got paid for the wars that we saw. And a lot of people were sort of, I guess some fans were upset that Israel Adesanya and Kelvin Gastelum and Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway didn't really get paid that much for a fight that probably took years of their life. Especially a guy like Israel, who's fought 6 times in a row, and it looks like the UFC's trying to get him to come back in August and fight again after that brutal fight with Kelvin Gastelum. Do you sort of have some advice for some of these guys in terms of doing similar stuff to what you're doing and sort of getting paid what they deserve for these kinds of awards that can sort of change them going into the future?
No, I don't really have any. I don't have any advice really. I mean, I don't know.
Because he seems to be doing it right, and a lot of these guys will, the UFC will give them a few days' notice, and they'll just take it, and they'll take however much they get paid, and they'll sort of do what they do. But you're kind of a guy that stands up and, you play the game and you say, look, I deserve to get paid this much, and I deserve to be healthy, whereas a lot of guys aren't doing that.
I would suggest to them to definitely read up on some negotiating tactics, negotiation. I think they're just worried about, they're great fighters. They're the best at what they do in that regard, but they got to look out for themselves. And negotiating that's the battle right there as far as, getting paid what you're worth. I think that, there's guys that they just take what's given to them, and it's kind of sad. So, I mean, I'm very happy with what the UFC's been giving me now, and if I continue, which I will, on the path that I've been on, we'll keep growing together, and I think that I'll tell you what, I'll either be happy or I'm going to be happy either way. Either I'm going to be happy or I'm going to go do something else. So that's my negotiation tactic right there. Is I will be happy either way.
So while we're talking about negotiations, how did this Cowboy fight come together, and why was this the right one for yourself, Al?
Man, I don't even. How did it come together? I was bugging them for a fight, and then they came to me with the Cowboy, and I said, "Is he in? Did he say yes?" They said yes, so I said, "Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it." Canada, I've never fought in Canada before. I've been there a bunch of times. Ottawa's the capital city, so that factors into everything too. Where I'm fighting. If it's like someplace that I would like to go, it's in May, so it's in Canada. It'll probably be a little warmer, and it's a place that I would like to see, kind of check out, the capital of Canada. Cowboy is a veteran of the sport. He's a guy that I've watched growing up when I was not even fighting yet. He's been in there with everybody. He's got when he gets announced, the crowd goes crazy. So it's a huge fight for me in terms of exposure, and he's a tough guy. Everyone respects him. He goes in there and he fights. So he's the guy that I need to beat to really put myself over. And I win this fight and I make it look good, it's gonna be huge for me. And I know if I fight to my capabilities, which I will, it's gonna be a great night for me.
I mean, you mentioned it. He's had his ups and downs, but it really seems like lightweight is the right place for him. Where does he sort of rank to you compared to some of the challenges that you've had recently, guys like Kevin Lee and some of the other guys that you've beaten?
He's just as dangerous as, I mean, every fighter has their own, I got to watch out for his strengths. I got to attack his weaknesses. It has the potential to be a really good fight for the fans, and I understand why the fans are kind of thinking it's going to be that way. I want to go in there and I want to make it look easy. I want to go out there and I want to finish him quick. Everyone's going, oh, fight of the night, this, brawl, that. This is the next. After last week, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go in there and win this thing flawless, make it look easy, But if it does go the distance, I'm more than prepared.
You said that if it plays out the way that you envision it, Al, that it'll do big things for your career. What do you think a win does for you? Because at this point, you'll be on a pretty nice streak in the lightweight division.
Yeah, I mean, it'll put me right up there. I'm not really too analytical of exactly where it will put me, but I'll figure that out after. Depending on how good I look and if I do what I know I can do, which I will, it's going to be a great night for me. It's going to be great.
Do you kind of get a bit of a laugh out of the fact that for a long time, people thought that Cowboy was going to be fighting Conor McGregor? There was so many talks of that, and that fight kind of just disappeared. And now, here you are fighting Cowboy Cerrone, instead of McGregor.
Yeah, I don't know if that it was ever even really a fight. That was, I mean, he's everyone that wins. He goes on Twitter and kind of like says a bunch of great things and then comes in with a little remark at the end. So I don't know. I think the Cowboy just bit the hardest on it, and he kind of like entertained it the most. But it seems like everyone was like, everyone wins their fight, then Conor says something, and then everyone's oh, I'm the next one. But no, he's just clowning everybody. He's a real big mouth lately,
Well, I mean, you mentioned it. Anytime sort of there's a big fight that has to do with him, he'll tweet about it. He'll tweet about fighting the potential guys. That's what he did with Cowboy Cerrone. But one guy that he hasn't really tweeted about much or really spoken about is you. Do you anticipate if you beat Cerrone, when you jump on Twitter afterwards, you'll see something from Conor McGregor? Or do you think he keeps avoiding you and doesn't really even put that out there?
I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know.
Would you want him to?
I'm not really too worried about it. If he's gonna say something, you better sign the con. You better, I'm not gonna be one of these guys that's like, oh, you playing it up and whatever. Like, I'm not gonna wait for him. I'm not really too worried about him. As far as I'm concerned, he's done. Done. He lost to Khabib, right? Look, look at me. This is how it's done. I lost like a man. And then I come back and I fight freaking Kevin Lee, who looked like he's been looking like a savage, you know what I mean? And I put him in his place. And now I'm fighting Cerrone. So this is how it's done. It's not done by freaking tweeting and acting like a hot shot. But that's his prerogative, so he can do what he wants.
Al, I was going to say, before we let you go, and we want to let you go so you can check out the game. Recently, there was a special anniversary of your post-fight interview at UFC Fight Night 63. Which kind of stands out in history when it comes to post-fight interviews. After your fight, some of the fans booed and you gave that epic speech. I'm just wondering, how do you feel about that moment sort of meaning so much to so many fans and people kind of calling it one of the kind of most touching and one of the most memorable post-fight moments in the UFC history?
If I could do it again, I would have went twice as hard at that. Yeah, I would have went twice as hard. But No, I was listen, I don't know. That was what it is. That is just I always thought I always sat and watched fights, and then after if they didn't like the decision, or if, look, I can get it if like I didn't fight hard or whatever, but I fought hard. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. I guess they were booing the decision, but and Masvidal like made a big deal as he was walking out of the cage, So I think that like hyped up the crowd. But I think it was still a great fight. I still think that the judges got it right. I still think that could you have seen it go the other way? Maybe, but the second and third round were mine. I got beat up in the first, and the only judge that gave it to him was that idiot Crosby. So I mean that guy is like the worst judge in the sport. I don't know how he's still working, but I think that the other two judges, I lost the first round, I won the second and third, and then he made a big deal when they announced me as that. Look, I root for him every time. I keep it looks great for me when he wins, and I keep going. So. It's good. It's good. It was a good interview. And they have a rule now about me. The ally Quinta, you can't curse on the mic. So it's pretty cool.
What do you mean that got implemented after that interview?
Yeah. And after the weigh-ins, they do a meeting backstage, and they always bring me up and they say, no matter what happens. You can't curse on the mic. It's the ally Quinta rule. So I'm in the history books. It's pretty good. I'll take it.
Did you find out because somebody else was fighting and they told you like, hey, there's a meeting going on and they called it the ally Quinta rule, or did you find out because you were in the meeting and they were like,
No, I heard about it. I heard about it forever. Everyone kept telling me about it, and then finally I fought Kevin Lee in the last Fox show, and Dana comes in the back and he goes, I always give this speech, but now he's actually here. And we talked about the ally Quinta rule, and it was great.
Wow, that is hilarious. That's a legacy right there.
And I was like, hey, Dana, it's the last one on Fox. How about we just talk, get the rule? Who cares? Like, let me curse,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I actually think I did. I tried, but I couldn't hold it in. I think I cursed on the mic afterwards, but oops.
What did Dana say when he said that? Was he like, go for it, kid, for good times?
No, we were just kind of joking around. We had a laugh about it. It was funny. It was good.
That's hilarious.
It was all good. It was all good fun. But I was glad that I finally got to hear the rule myself in person, and it was good.
I never knew that, and I don't think anyone else did either. So I'm glad we found out about the ally Quinta rule. As we let you go, Al. Obviously, you got this massive fight against Donald Cerrone, ESPN +8. How do you see the fight playing out? If you had to give a prediction, I don't know if you're a fan of predictions, but if you had to give one, how do you see this one playing out?
Go out there, I'd move, I'd land, I'd pick shots. They look good. Maybe mix in a takedown, maybe do some things that you never seen me do before. But either way, I make it look flawless. I make it look good. And then if he holds up, it'll be a 5 round. I'll just be content on beating on him for 5 rounds. If I have to dig down deep and come back, I dig down deep and come back. But no matter how it happens, I'm getting my hand raised at the end.
And then like a million F-bombs on the mic just for ESPN, just to let him know.
Crazy.
Just to let him know who's in. Yeah, let him know who's
on
in.
The mic. And then I come to Sydney, Australia, and I surf Bondi Beach, Byron Bay, go up to Cairns, check out the Great Barrier Reef again. I'm due for an Australia trip.
For sure, and then you can drop
the Gold Coast. I think Gold Coast is next. I gotta get it to Gold Coast. For
sure, and you can drop the C-bomb in Australia as well. So there's a lot of positives about coming back down. The guys, make sure to follow Al on Twitter and Instagram at Al Iaquinta. Make sure to watch him take on Donald Cerrone on May 4th. Oh, what's wrong with me? May 4th or 5th here in Australia on ESPN on UFC on +8. Al, we appreciate you being on the program. We appreciate you taking a break from the game to give us your thoughts, and we hope you have a delicious home-cooked dinner back home. Thank Mama Quinta for us.
She's the best. Islanders are up 2-1. Then they pulled the goalie. There's like 30 seconds left. We're looking good.
It's like an episode of Mighty Ducks. It's like Mighty Ducks 2. They pulled Goldberg.
Goldberg.
We hope that we brought the game some luck, and that when we hang up, they don't start losing horribly.
You want to stay on the phone for 42 seconds?
Yeah, let's hang out. Let's watch this together.
I always wanted to be a Bash brother.
Oh man.
What's your dad's reaction going to be like if because he wants the Islanders to win, right? He's going for them.
Yeah. No, he's definitely. I don't know. I think back in the day he would have went crazy. Now he's just kind of like, all right, good game. But then they got to go. This is just the first round of the playoffs, so they got to keep it going. They got to keep it going.
He better go crazy when you get your wins in the UFC.
I don't know. He looks at me. My face is beat up, he looks at me and he's just like, oh. I'm like, dude, be happy. I won. He's like, I'm happy. But look at you. You got your eyes are all puffy and whatever. All right, here we go. 42 seconds. You guys really want to stay on?
Well, if there's 42 seconds left, let's just watch out the rest of the 42 seconds. Oh, look at this.
Yeah, you scored. That's it. Game over.
There we go.
Radio.
Look at
that.
Yes,
continues.
That's it. All right. I love it.
We'll let you go, Al. But this is kind of crazy. Couple of guys from Australia sharing a moment with a guy all the way there in the States watching the Islanders. This is beautiful, right? Amazing.
It's great. It's great. Go Islanders. I love it.
Enjoy.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And tune in April 4th. That fight already happened. May 4th, May 5th in Australia. It's going to be a good fight. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
100%. We'll chat to you soon. Good luck, Al. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks, Al. Take care, my friend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Well, this is a very, very special treat. Our next guest needs very little introduction. He is the UFC middleweight champion of the world, Australia's and New Zealand's own. And look at this. He didn't have to, but he's kind enough to join us over Skype straight out of Sydney. Robert Whittaker, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today, man? It's great to have you on this lovely morning.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, no, I'm good. Very good. Very, very good.
Really, really appreciate it. I imagine this is the big gaming chair. You're in the gaming room. Let's start with the burning question, Rob, that everybody, and I mean everybody, wants to know. Your wife's birthday was just over a week ago. What was the game plan for the day? How did you execute it? What kind of birthday presents are we talking from the middleweight champion himself?
Honestly, the best birthday present that I could have given her was just getting a weekend away from the kids.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I set up some babysitters, like my dad, my mother-in-law, and my sister, and I set it up so that she had about 2 nights, 3 days without kids, and we just stayed in the city, bummed around. It was great.
Wow, that's some championship level advice there, because I feel like if you've been with someone for a while, like you have with your missus, you got to kind of constantly get better and better gifts. But I think the key here is have kids, and then you can just get rid of them for a birthday, and that's sort of a present, just a little bit of peace and quiet. Just the basic things.
You know what? I think one of the best gifts you can give someone is time, because time's quite valuable.
Wow. This interview is getting into more wisdom than I anticipated, Rob, especially on early morning out of Sydney. Well, I mean, speaking of time, I mean, it's been a little bit of time since we've spoken to you, so we've missed you. And the big question is, of course, regarding UFC 236. Before we talk about the fight and what happened itself, set the scene for us. Where exactly did you watch the fights from? Where's your like favorite spot to watch the fights when you know there's an important one on and you want to sort of check it out?
Even to be fair, even if there's an important fight on, I still won't watch it. But some people asked me to go down to the Star to watch it, so and meet some people and do some work there. So I went down to the Star and watched the fights there.
Let me ask you, what's the mentality behind that? Why is it that you won't watch the big fights? Is it that you only sort of watch them when you need to, I guess, prepare for someone, and so you'll watch it at some point, or you just have no real interest otherwise?
I just don't have any interest in it, to be honest. It's just I just feel like there's something else I could do. Sorry.
That's all right.
That's all good.
I just feel like there's just other stuff I could be doing. Like for opponents that I have to fight, and definitely I watch tape and review tape, but only because my coaches insist that I watch this and that. It's just one of those things.
It's interesting because before me and Casper started doing Submission Radio, obviously, I'd watch fights all the time. Every weekend, I was obsessed with it. We'd always talk about it. But as we got into doing Submission Radio sometimes, because it's sort of our job sometimes, you don't feel like watching like a Czech Republic fight night card at like 3 a.m. So I'm just wondering, before you became champion and started fighting in the UFC, were you more of a sort of dedicated fan? Like, would you tune in with your mates and watch it more? And do you find that because you are the champion, it's kind of like your job, you've kind of distanced yourself a little bit more from it?
No, I've never been huge into watching sports, like, ever.
Wow.
I like anime. But yeah, I've just never been into it. Like, my father used to watch some old school kickboxing back in the day, and I watched like a bit of Zambitis and Pa and Carnage and stuff growing up. But that was mainly just because he would have it on and I would watch it with him. But apart from that, it's just not something I enjoy doing, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you mentioned a lot of classics there, so obviously you watch the important stuff. You'll see this when this comes out. I have a million Vegetas behind me. I've got a Goku somewhere here behind me. What is your favorite anime? Just out of curiosity, what kind of anime do you like, Rob?
Oh, mate, like there's so many, and I've watched so much. I spent the better part of my youth just wasted away in front of the screen. There's too many. I can't. At the top of my head, I can't give you one. Sorry, mate.
Are you a Dragon Ball Z fan at least?
Yeah, but there's a debate whether you would call that anime.
Oh, Rob,
wow!
Don't upset me.
But I really do like Dragon Ball Z though. I think it's great. I think it's drawn out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
But watching Dragon Ball Z starts to become a job.
You're like a bit of a Goku, He's like this badass, but he's always having a laugh, chilling out, and then he only gets super serious when someone's, trying to destroy the planet and shit. That's like the perfect man. That's you right there.
Well, no, my favorite character is Broly, brother.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have picked that from you. He's insane.
Intense anger. I love him.
Can't forget the perverted old man as well. That guy's a classic. Well, if you did sort of compare yourself to a character from any of your favorites, do you see a resemblance to yourself and any character that comes from a real series that you enjoy?
Oh, that's hard to say because
hard-hitting questions here on Submission.
Yeah,
well,
we're not gonna lie. Yeah, because most of anime is bullshit, right? One dude can fly or not. It's hard for me to relate personally to those sort of guys. You know what I do like? I do like the sports one, Bucky, the grappler. That's a pretty solid show, and that dude's always just striving to get better and just beat people up.
Okay, yeah. I can definitely see where the resemblance to yourself comes from. Let's talk about obviously UFC 236. You mentioned you're at the lovely Star Casino watching UFC 236, and funnily enough, Israel Adesanya, obviously another man who loves anime. What did you think about his win over Kelvin Gastelum over the past weekend?
I thought that was a great fight. I thought it was a wonderful fight to watch. I thought both fighters showed a lot of heart. They went in there and they put on, a lot of people have been saying it, and I'm on board with that. It's probably the fight of the year.
What did you make of? There was a point in the fight where Kelvin Gastelum was, having a lot of success. It looked like Israel was sort of on shaky legs, and then he chose to kind of shoot in. And a lot of people are critical about that moment because they believe that Kelvin should have stayed up there and should have kept throwing strikes, and they believe he might have been able to get the finish. What did you think about that point in the fight? Do you think Kelvin might have made a strategical error there?
Yeah, I think it was a poor decision, but it's easy for me to say on the outside.
Yeah.
Who knows how he was feeling and what was going through his head while he was doing it. Yeah, I guess like from the outside, like it looked like a bad decision, but like I said, I wasn't in there.
What would you say your biggest takeaway was, and the biggest thing you learned about Israel was coming away from that fight? Anything new that sort of stood out to you? Anything new that you learned about him?
Nothing new at all. I feel that fight showed exactly what I've been saying the whole time. I think he's great, but he doesn't like getting hit. He doesn't look great going backwards, and I just don't think he's as good as he thinks he is. Like and let me be clear. Like that's not putting it on him because I know he gets very upset whenever I say anything negative about him. But I'm saying it was a great fight. He showed a lot of heart, and he's amazing. But like. Yeah, he got hit. He got hit and he got hurt. And if Gastelum can hit and hurt him, I can hit and hurt him.
Because we know you've obviously prepared for Gastelum. You were supposed to fight him in Melbourne. Based on what you saw in this fight, and this is a bit of a difficult question, but who do you think is kind of the tougher test for you personally? Do you think a Kelvin Gastelum would have been a tougher test than this possible Israel Adesanya fight for you?
Definitely. No, now, I'm not saying that Adesanya is an easy fight for me. I just think stylistically he matches up much better with my own style. Stylistically I always wanted to fight Adesanya. Gastelum is he's a keg. He's a keg. like when I was watching him fight Adesanya, that's the fight I was expecting when I was gonna fight Gastelum. Like that's the fight I had prepped for 12 weeks, and like that's the fight I had in mind when I was almost going to fight him in Melbourne, and I'm happy. I'm very happy. Adesanya had that fight.
He took him out of there, sort of. I guess for you, it's crazy because you had the two wars with Yoel Romero, and now Gastelum had this war, or Israel had this war with Gastelum. Do you think that you and Israel Adesanya will sort of be another war, another massive war in your career?
No, there won't be a war. No, not with me and him. It's going to be short and sweet, brother. Trust me.
You think it'll be a little bit more one-sided?
I guarantee you.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that you always saw, I guess, these holes in Israel's game, and you weren't surprised that Kelvin was able to get in on him. What do you sort of attribute that to? Because we see Israel as obviously a phenomenal striker. He's got a great striking pedigree, but what would you attribute, I guess, the fact that Kelvin was able to close the distance on him and sort of get past reach? We saw that with a lot of fighters who have come from, I guess, big striking backgrounds, and then, you know, it's obviously different in MMA.
Oh, definitely. That's what Kelvin does. Kelvin's like one of the shortest guys in the roster, like in the 185 division. You know, like he either has to learn how to get in, or he gets smashed. Like, and he's done that with every fighter. Every fighter he's come in has been taller than him. You know, and he gets in, he lands that left and drops him. And like, I knew he was going to do that. He's very subtle in the way he does that. He's very good. He's very crafty, and he's good, and he's great at doing that, at subtly closing the gap and landing that left hand. I knew he would be able to do that. Did I know he was? Did I think he would be able to do it for the 5 rounds? Who knows? You know, did I think Adesanya was going to wear it and keep going? Didn't know, but I did know that he will close the gap, because that's how Adesanya fights. Adesanya fights planted and lean back, because he takes great advantage of his height, which is the right thing to do with someone with that body type.
A lot of people sort of impressed with Adesanya going for a couple of submissions. How did you rate his grappling in this one?
Yeah, I think he's very dangerous. I think his body type, is definitely with his body type, he can definitely attack things in a crafty way. He's definitely dangerous in a few positions. But like, it's hard to say, because Gastelum wasn't actively grappling him very well. You know, I don't know how tired he was, or what was the plan, or if he was rocked, or how he was going. But he wasn't putting on a show of his own grappling. You know.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because leading into your Gastelum fight, and I guess over the last few fights, people have been including ourselves, people have been asking about Israel for the longest time. But of course, with you, you're always focused on the opponent at hand, and you don't really pay mind to anybody else. Now that Israel is the interim champ, have you been able to sort of set your sights on him? Does it feel to you like, yep, he's the next guy. This is the guy that I'm fighting. This is the guy that I can focus on now.
Yeah, definitely. As soon as once him and Gastelum were lined up to fight each other, I started preparing for Adesanya, because I had spent the longest time preparing for Gastelum. You know, I could go back to that. So I started preparing for Adesanya. And now that he's won, like, obviously all my sights are set on him and focusing on, you know, exploiting his weaknesses.
He's in an interesting position as well, because he's someone that, like, Dana White had a meeting with, and it looks like the UFC are really keen to push him, and sort of they see him as this next big star. But then here you're a big star in Australia, and you're the champion. Do you feel like sometimes people sort of look too forward into the future when they talk about a guy like Israel?
That's just the nature of the sport. That's just the nature of the company, of the culture of the sport. It's like you see someone that's a prospect, everyone jumps on the bandwagon until, you know, it either falls off the rails or it doesn't. Like, that's just how it is.
What was it like for you, I guess, sort of, you know, sitting back and then seeing him during fight week kind of take some of these jabs at you, talking about what he would have done in the past however many years if he was champion? And I think in the past he sort of, I don't think he ever hit it, but I think in the fight week scrum he was asked, I believe, by John Morgan, sort of, you know, are you taking, you know, little stings at Robert Whittaker? And he said, I'm taking jabs. It feels like almost the tension has slowly risen, at least on his side.
Yeah, mate, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. How he uses his spotlight and the attention he's given is on him. If he wants to use his spotlight to throw jabs at me and to talk about me, I'm all for that. That's fine. That works for me very well. You know, but I've been using my spotlight in a positive way. I've been trying to push. I have educational programs here in Australia, and I'm trying to push educational programs in New Zealand coming up. And, like, I'm using my spotlight for the better of everyone, for the better of myself, for the better of everyone around me. I'm trying to do things bigger than the game. I'm not sitting here talking about other men. Like, it's yeah, but, you know, it's fine. Like, I'm happy with that. All he's doing is selling the fight. Like, you do that. You do you, I'll do me. And then we'll meet in the octagon, and, you know, words won't have much of an effect there.
Well, we remember that when you guys first met, we were there, and he said something along the lines of you smelling nice, and it looked like you guys really kind of got along there. When it comes down to fight week, I guess he might be the first person that actually ever comes after you verbally, because we haven't really seen too many people trash talk you before, Rob. You mentioned that, you know, that it would be a good thing, sort of, if he's doing a bit of trash talk. Do you imagine that has any effect on you at all during fight week? Is it more of a positive for you? You know, you laugh a lot of stuff off, so it doesn't seem like a lot of it could really stick.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It might be Australian culture, because, like, I have thick skin. It takes a lot to get under my skin. Like, and to be fair, I honestly don't care. Like, I just don't care. People think I'm the nice guy, and it's like, I'm not being nice. I just don't care. Like, what you're saying, that doesn't faze me, because I don't think about it. I don't think about you when I go home. I don't think about you ever, like, ever. And, like, you know, obviously I've got in trouble. Like, UFC want me to do more things, and different reporters and journos try to push the fight. They try to push tension and create a rise out of me. But, like, the thing is, I just don't care. Like, you sell the fight. I'll rock up and put it on you. Like, it doesn't matter.
When you say the UFC want you to do more things, because I remember in Adelaide we spoke to you about sort of like media and this perception that you didn't want to do media, and you clarified that. You said you're happy to do any media as long as it doesn't interfere with your training. Has that sort of been sorted out with the UFC, or are they still, like, trying to get you to do ridiculous things?
It was a miscommunication, honestly, because the only time I have any problem with media is when they want to go somewhere or to do something, and to that effect. I've always been open to media. I do any media they put in front of me as long as it doesn't clash with my training program. Because like I said then, and I'm saying it now, it's like you either want me to win fights or you want me to do media. And I can't do both.
We want to quickly bring up this. When we spoke to Israel a long time ago, he said, me versus Rob, it's like Australia versus New Zealand. But obviously, you're part New Zealand. You're from New Zealand. How do you sort of see this fight? Because from his perspective, he sees it as a battle of nations, Australia versus New Zealand. But in a lot of ways, you're both the New Zealand and Australian UFC champion.
Yeah, no, I think that's ridiculous because I'm very proud of my Australian culture and my Māori heritage. Like it is ridiculous. You can't take my country from me.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get a rise out of you here, but when he was calling you a Mozzie at the post-fight press conference, I thought, I don't think people in the States are really going to understand the reference. I don't think people in the States are really going to understand what Mozzie is. What exactly is Mozzie, and what did you think when he was saying that about you at the post-fight presser?
I think it's like a Australian Māori, isn't it? Like half-half.
That's
half
what
cast.
I think. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't take offense to it, to being called a Mozzie at all, because that's what I am. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous when he called me a fake Mozzie. Like, it's like, yeah, there's no, how can I be a fake Mozzie? Like, how? If I'm a fake, what does that make him?
Oh man, it's a crazy situation. Let me ask you this: you put up a post on Instagram yesterday that read, "As a great warrior once said, send location." Was that you sort of putting the ball in his court after hearing that he may not be ready to fight in August?
Nah. I get spurts of inspiration, and I think this would be funny, and then I put it up, and but the ball is kind of in his court. Like I said, I'll be ready for August, and I want to fight in August because I want the fight here in Sydney, because I think that's around the time the Sydney card or an Australian card is due. So yeah, I'm getting ready. Hope he heals fast.
I was going to say, what was your reaction when you saw that Dana White wanted to not only bring it here in Australia, but of course, I don't think he confirmed Sydney. Sydney's what we've been hearing as well, but that he wants to do it in a stadium, not an arena. Obviously, Rod Laver Arena is great if they came to Melbourne, but he wants to do it in a massive stadium. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's great. It will sell out. Like, anywhere we fight is going to sell out. Like, every time I fight on an Australian card, it sells out. So, yeah, I want it here. I want it here. Third time's the charm.
Well, ANZ Stadium would be a great place for something like that. Now, he did mention that he needed some time to heal up, wanting extra time to work on his skills, prepare for you. What do you think about the amount of fights that he's had in such a short amount of time? And if he does take this fight in August, do you think that has any impact on him about fighting too many times or maybe even being a positive? I'm not sure.
No, definitely. Fighting takes a lot out of you. And a fight like that with Gastelum takes a lot out of you, a lot out of you. And, yeah, your neural systems go to places they shouldn't in fight situations. It's very intense, and I think fighting this much will start to wear him down. I think it will start to show. I feel like it started to show in the Gastelum fight, but it also keeps you sharp. It keeps him switched on. It gets rid of the nerves. So, well, I think he's had a lot of fights. That last fight was a war, and yeah, I intend to exploit that.
When you say it showed in the Gastelum fight, in what ways? For laymen's like us, what exactly did you see? What signs did you see?
Well, when he got hurt, he just didn't want to be there. He just didn't want to be there. That's what I saw. He just looked like he did not want to be there. But then I could be mistaken. Who knows?
If he can't make this August timeline, obviously Jacques fighting in a couple of weeks. He's been trying to get this title shot. The UFC have apparently promised one after Israel if he wins. Would you be open to fighting someone else in Australia, or is the fact that this is such a big fight in a stadium show too much to pass up, and you'd be willing to sort of schedule it for later?
I fight when my body's healed, and I've never picked my fights. I fight anyone they put in front of me. And when my body's healed, I'm gonna fight someone, and whoever that is.
If Jacare is watching this right now, in his head he's going, so he's saying there's a chance.
Jacare is a hard fight.
Well, I mean, and you already have him on your record. You already own a win over him. Want to talk about the body in just a second, but before we do, you also put in that Instagram post hashtag Jon Jones can wait. What did you make of that whole saga of sort of, between him and Jon Jones recently? They were originally interested in fighting each other, sort of somewhere down the line. Jon Jones looks like he's not that interested anymore.
I think Jon Jones will kill him. Yeah. I think it's silly. But then I think Israel just kind of takes jabs and bites at everyone, doesn't he? Like, it's got a big,
It kind of looks like Jon Jones is kind of geared up for this fight because his division is a little bit quiet. What do you kind of make of him kind of pursuing it over and over and over? Do you just kind of see this as him seeing a big payday for himself while he's sort of waiting for like a DC or someone to free up?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. He's kind of cleaned out his division. It's one of those things. Like, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Like once I'm gonna fight Adesanya, and then then I'll be a little free myself.
Free yourself? What do you mean by that, Rob? That's very cheeky. What do you mean free yourself? You're not moving up to 205, are you?
I'll definitely move up, not down.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for opponents, that's a fight. Like, that's a great fight.
So you're throwing your hat in there against Jon Jones potentially?
Yeah, man. Why not?
Let me just ask you while we're on the topic, just quickly, if you did move up to 205, if you did have this fight with Jon Jones, what would that mean for you? Would that be the end of your time at middleweight, or do you just see this as a potential sort of super fight that you and Jon could have if you clear out the division and beat Israel and maybe a Jacare?
Yeah, I think the fight would I think I could just give him a run for his money. I surprise a lot of people. I'm full of tricks, and I think the intensity I bring into a fight is something a lot of people aren't prepared for. But he's a great fighter. He's super, super dangerous. I'm under no illusion how hard it would be. And yeah, I think it'd be fun.
Is it because I think this is the first time I've heard you talk about it. Is this something that you sort of had a goal in the back of your mind sort of for a long time? Or is it something that you've just kind of thought of recently and thought, you know what, this would be good, somewhere down the line?
Yeah, well, while I was making my run through the middleweight division and fighting in the division, it's very hard for me to plan outside of the division. Obviously all my focus has been on the division and doing work there and making waves and making moves there. But seeing Jon Jones looking for opponents, and then the idea of moving up I don't hate that idea.
Does a part of you get annoyed that like your name was never in the mix? I mean, you're the champ. You've had so many great performances against guys like Yoel Romero, guys who look like they'll be moving up. Is it annoying that no one sort of brought your name into the mix until you just mentioned it now?
Not really. I've never led them to think that I was going to do something like this or that I was open to the idea.
I feel like it'd be very poetic. You were sort of the dark horse in the middleweight division when you made your debut. I still remember you sitting there with Michael Bisping and Rockhold at Fight Night 55 in Sydney. Now here you are wearing the gold. If you were to move up to 205, it would be such a crazy shock to everyone, and we'd get a massive super fight. Got to ask though, it's kind of crazy that we're even talking about you fighting soon because you said when your body is ready, when your body is healed. I saw an interview you did with Nick Walshaw for the Daily Telegraph. You spoke about the twisted bowel, the internal hernia you had, the throat infection you got right at the end, I think, as you were leaving the hospital. Apparently, you even lost 7 kilos. Physically, was this the hardest thing that you've ever had to go through in your MMA career? Definitely.
It was definitely the hardest thing I've had to do because once all the physical effects hit me and I couldn't train, had the throat infection. I was sick. Couldn't move. Wasn't able to walk very much. Like that takes a toll on you mentally. And then it was like one of the hardest things mentally I had to get through. And in saying that, I'm a much better person now for it. Like I'm much stronger. I'm much more resilient. Stuff like this coming through adversity like this makes you weathered. You know.
I guess in some ways it makes you stronger, right, mentally for sort of coming through something like this, right?
Definitely, nothing can beat me down.
I know that in another interview, you sort of, I think a few weeks ago, you described yourself as a marshmallow when you got back into training. How are you feeling now? Are you sort of back to 100%? How is the training going?
Yeah, I'm back at full training, and I'm training with the boys, and it's hard. It's hard work, you know, coming back off an injury where you literally cannot move, like can't lift anything, like can barely walk. It was 4 weeks until I could start walking. So,
Wow.
like it was, yeah, it was hard, and it's still hard. It's a hard road, but yeah, it is what it is. Like I'm not afraid of hard work.
Just quickly, 4 weeks of walking, man. What was that like? Were you sort of just bedridden for that entire time, and what was it like, I guess, to finally walk again? I imagine you would have never been happier than at that moment to be walking again.
Yeah, to be able to do stuff and move around, and then slowly move into light training, rehab, prehab sort of stuff, and then move into actual training. It's been great. It's been great to be at training again. It's what I'm meant to be doing, you know.
Well, Rob, I'll tell you what. We're happy to see you healthy. It's an exciting time for everybody in the sport. So many fun fights. As we wrap up, we always have to ask you this question. In the meantime, while we wait for this Israel Adesanya fight to come to fruition, what is Robert Whittaker playing right now on the computer? Hit us with it. What's the game? What have you been playing? And can people catch you online in it?
I did a stream of ESO like a little while ago, and it was a bad stream though. It looked like Minecraft. But yeah, my internet was trash. But you know, I've been playing. You know, it's funny. I've been playing Fallout 4.
Mm-hmm.
The game never gets old. You go in and you just make all new decisions and you learn new things. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying that role playing a different character. Dude's so evil. I'm so evil. It's funny as.
Wait, your character's evil?
Yeah, so evil. Like I'm making it a point. If there's like a dick option, I pick it every time. It's like every time I pick it, I have to. If I can steal from you, I'm going to. Like,
wow.
I feel like it's Robert Whittaker with an eye patch and nothing much different.
Just face tattoos and a vest.
Oh, tattoos and a vest. Jeez. All right, guys. Well, make sure to follow Rob on Twitter/Instagram at Robert Whittaker MMA. Check out all of his game streams. And, of course, Grange TV. Man, I got to quickly say before you wrap up, Grange TV, a fantastic thing that everybody needs to check out. Rob, you're so loose and relaxed on that program. It's really a must-watch for all MMA fans.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we try to keep it really loose and just have good conversations, good chats. You know, I let viewers in on a little bit of my inner thoughts, I guess.
Your parkour background.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
Thank you so much, champ. Can't wait to see what happens next. Thanks so much for coming on to Submission Radio.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks,
Rob.
mate.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks for popping on Skype. Take care.
Easy, mate. Too easy. Take it easy.
This is TJ Dillashaw, UFC champ. Listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is set to take on Jan Blachowicz at UFC 239 as he makes his official light heavyweight debut, a former Strikeforce and UFC middleweight champion, as well as the face of Ralph Lauren Polo Blue, Luke Rockhold himself. Luke, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today, man?
I'm doing well, boys. Just eating good, getting ready.
I know, because when you were going to go down to Melbourne, we were going to make a very nice dinner reservation for you, and that was back when you were doing the whole middleweight thing. So I imagine being at light heavyweight, you never have to think about another cut to 185. That's got to be pretty liberating, right?
I've never felt better. We're going to have to go back down to Melbourne. Makes me want to go fight back in Melbourne, one of the best restaurant cities in the world.
Well, you know, if you want us to make another dinner reservation for you, Luke, you just have to ask, you know. Submission Radio, part-time Luke Rockhold restaurant reservation team.
Hey, give me a damn sure I'm coming out this next after this fight. This summer calls for an Australian trip.
100%. It's almost like tradition at this point. We saw a picture of you and Matty Matheson on Instagram. He's not really a nutritionist now, is he?
he's doing my next fight camp. He's getting me ready for light heavyweight.
That's good.
Up.
It's good. Yeah, you'll get some. You'll be covered in tattoos now, right? Like him.
End up at super heavyweight by accident.
Fucking covered up from the neck down, moving up to heavyweight.
Yeah, that's it. How did you end up meeting Matty Matheson? I'm actually a huge fan of his stuff on Munchies. I love his cooking style. How did you end up meeting him? Were you at a fancy restaurant and he just happened to be there?
No, we had like a dinner. Me and Pat Tenor from Ruka, good friend of mine, and Matty. They're working together, and so we had to organize a dinner. We had some training together over at the Ruka gym in OC and Newport, and we had dinner together. Matty's he's a legend. He's one of the greatest humans around. Really, really good dude.
He seems like a good dude, but the question is, did he cook for you? Did he cook for you, or you guys were just hanging out at another restaurant?
Bastard didn't cook for me yet, so he's got some work to do for me. He was my water boy for my sparring sessions with that week. So he's promised to keep me hydrated for this next fight. I think we're gonna work him in the corner.
Wow, I want to see him at an open workout for UFC 239. And the last time you've been on and been kind enough to join us, you've sort of been recovering physically. Tell us, Luke, how's the body and the knee doing? Is everything back to 100%?
I'd say it's pretty much there. It's getting there. I'll be back resume full training next week. I pushed it a little bit, and so I ended up taking a step back from the recovery time, and so I'm getting to that 100% realm. And I haven't kicked in probably 6 months really. So I'm excited to go out there and start taking some livers next week.
I'm just curious because, the kicks, that's going to be the big thing, right? Because your kicks are awesome. You're known for your kicks, and I'm sure you want to use them in this fight, UFC 239. Are you concerned about sort of getting them back into your arsenal? And will we still see, I guess the question is, will we still see the same sort of Karate Kid Luke Rockhold when it comes to UFC 239 with his flying kicks? Or do you anticipate there's going to be a change to your game because you want to avoid re-injuring the same stuff?
I got to be a little careful. I'm not going to lie. That the whole shin wound and everything I went through with that, it's been a fucking ordeal. I've been having to kind of train my skin and kind of torturing my leg, kind of treating that as best I can, toughen that up. So we'll see how it holds up. I have a lot of confidence now. I think given the time frame in Madison Square Garden when we're supposed to fight, I think my leg would have just opened up like a big vagina. So I'm glad
that's the problem when you Luke Rockhold. There's a lot of that happening.
We didn't make it to that dance. Weird. Awkward. No, but I feel good, man. I have my strength like I had back in in the early days of Strikeforce. It's different, man. I've been depleting myself, and I've had to kind of change my game. And when I get down to those lower 200 realms, I just don't feel as strong. And here it's different. I'll be moving forward, and guys are gonna feel every shot I throw. It's gonna be different. I'm gonna move forward. And I'm gonna put people on their back and throw holes through them.
I was gonna say I saw a video of you throwing body shots on Instagram, and you look incredibly powerful. So do you actually feel a lot stronger now compared to when you were at 185?
I do, and I'm 220 plus, and I've never really implemented any weight training in my game plan really, and I've never really had the room to gain, and this is different now, and it feels right. I'm fucking pumped to get back in there and swing.
We're pumped as well. Now, obviously, your fighters with Jan. Tell us, how did this fight come about? Was he the guy you originally wanted? Because we know, like Anthony Smith, he's been very outspoken about you lately, saying he wants to fight you at the first opportunity. Was he actually offered you that fight to take instead of Jan?
I asked for the fight right off the bat. They were trying to finalize a Corey Anderson over there. I couldn't get that. He didn't want to take the fight there. I tried to get the fight. He wouldn't take it with me, and they needed somebody.
He didn't think it was going to do anything for him, Luke.
What's that?
Corey.
He
wasn't that keen on fighting you. He didn't think the fight with you was going to do much for him.
Alexander's not going to do it. Who the fuck does Corey Anderson think he is? I mean, the problem is he is nobody. That's why he's not getting any respect. Fight somebody that's going to give you some recognition. That's what you need. So anyway, on from him. You know, I wanted to fight Corey. I want to fight anybody I could at the top of the game here in the States. You know, as much as I like traveling, I wasn't into it. And so I needed an opponent here, and you know, the available guys were Corey. I was trying to get Anthony and then Dominic Reyes, and then they didn't want any of that. I mean, they tried to get the Corey. Obviously, we lost Anthony. They didn't want the Dom. They wanted to move him slowly, I guess. And so I ended up with Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz is a tough dude, and so took the fight. Here we go.
Just on Anthony, what exactly happened with that fight? Was it because he wasn't interested in fighting you at the time, or was it that the UFC just would have preferred to have him fight Gustafsson?
I think they just needed somebody to go fill the Stockholm card, and you know, Anthony would be their bitch. So they sent him out.
You know, Anthony, he was pretty animated during that press conference. I know in another interview with Luke, I believe he said you didn't really quite get to watch it, but look, what did you make of, I guess, how much passion he had when he was sort of talking about you and wanting to sort of punch you and fight you? And we kind of never really seen Anthony get so excited and riled up about anybody. And this is a guy that's fought Jon Jones.
The guy's been in the spotlight. He's got his first taste of, like, you know, the main spotlight. I don't know, what is it, like 2 fights now he's had, like, with actually any recognition. So I think he's just not used to, obviously, being there, doesn't know how to handle himself, and that's what it really comes down to. The guy's a rookie, and he just can't take the truth. I always tell the truth. People don't like the truth. Love it or hate it, I'm gonna fucking tell it. I told him, said what he is. He ain't gonna survive. He's gonna lose to Gustafsson, and he's gonna be non-existent. That's what it is.
Would he still be on your radar after this Jan Blachowicz fight, or would you sort of feel like you've kind of, I guess, moved on from that fight?
I'm gonna go put Jan away, and I'm gonna move forward. And Anthony's moving backwards, so I don't foresee a matchup.
The division's very, I suppose, interesting at the moment. Luke, lots of opportunities to move up quickly. If you do get this win over Jan, and the UFC offered you an opportunity to fight Jon Jones if he wins at UFC 239, would you be willing to sort of take that fight in your sort of second fight at 205, or would you want a couple more warm-up fights before you moved up and fought the champ?
You think I wouldn't be willing?
Well, I've seen you get on a camel in Perth to promote your fight with the fight with Robert Whittaker, so I think you'd do anything.
I'd jump on that opportunity in a heartbeat. I've been training as Jon Jones for DC so many years, and I know his style, and I like what we have here. So I'm gonna go focus on what I'm doing here this summer, and you know, everything works out. Me and Jon will be dancing.
Has the UFC
late year or 2020?
Wow. Has the UFC given you any indication as far as your, I guess, career trajectory? Have they said, look, if you get this win over Jan, you might be next in line?
Well, Thiago Santos just got a world title fight after beating Jan Blachowicz, so
of course
I feel like I go out there and put a performance on. What's to deny me? What else is there? These guys are scouring around, not taking fights. So I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna perform and do my job, and I'm gonna let the chips fall where they may.
I gotta ask, and we'll talk about Jan in just a second. But what sort of problems do you think you sort of pose to Jon Jones as far as, you know, a matchup? Because a lot of people like the idea of you coming to this division because, you know, you're a fresh face and you're someone that people can get excited about. You know, when you eventually do fight Jon Jones, what kind of problems do you think you pose for him?
Why don't you ask DC what kind of problems I face for him?
I would, but
I can strike with him.
DC's not here right now.
I can strike with him. I'm no slouch in the wrestling game. Trust me, with the size I have now, it's different. And I'm gonna give a lot more power. I'm gonna bring it on the feet. And I don't believe there's a man in this game that can fuck with me on the ground. When you start implementing punches and grappling, there's no one. I don't believe there's anybody who can dance in that realm.
Mm. It's interesting because obviously you'll be fighting on the same card as Jon. What do you sort of anticipate fight week being like? You guys obviously being around each other a lot at UFC 239. Do you imagine it'll be awkward? He seems to be a guy that kind of follows these kinds of comments. Do you imagine he'll approach you and say some stuff to you? What are you sort of envisioning here?
Anytime you're meeting somebody at the top, you guys are gonna get after each other. Me and John never had a problem, but we've never been in the same division, so we'll see. We'll see. You know, I'm gonna focus on Jan Blachowicz. How do you say it? How do you even say his last name?
Casper's Polish, so he's got it for you.
I don't know.
Yeah, Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah.
It's all right. Many have tried. Even I fail sometimes, so it's all good.
Yeah. So, looking forward to it. Fight week, July 6th. We're full steam ahead.
A couple more questions
from the card. The whole card sounds fun.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be a very exciting card, and we can't wait to see you on there. Just a couple more questions before we get to Jan. Obviously, Jon Jones has been trying to it looked like he called out Israel Adesanya at some point on social media, sort of going back and forth, talking about Israel and fighting him. What was your reaction to that, especially considering Israel is a guy that is in your former division of middleweight and just won that interim title?
I think Israel had an amazing performance, but he's still got a long ways to go, man. There's guys like Yoel in front of him that are, and Robert Whittaker, which is the true champ, man. People have to understand. I mean, that was a great performance he had, but the champ is still there. There's still a few guys ahead of him, so he's got a ways to go. And I think John's just looking for anything that can get traction. John's he's in a dead pool up there. There's not a lot of fish in the pond, and so I think he's just struggling, he's trying to pick off these easy fights. He's trying to make people relevant like Anthony Smith. I don't know. He's trying to pick off style matchups. So that's my belief.
Who are you? I know you didn't end up fighting Robert Whittaker, but you did spend a whole camp preparing for him. So based on what you know about the guy and what you saw from Israel, who are you leaning towards when they inevitably fight?
I'm leaning on Robert, man. Yeah, but you never know with Israel. Israel's tough. I think he's obviously proved so many people who he is. But Robert he's got more heart than Kelvin. I think he's got just the same power. It's crisper. He's more creative. He's going to last longer. He's going to give more. It's going to be tough fight. Robert's the champ.
What's interesting, Luke, is we had Robert Whittaker on the program just before, and he was actually discussing the fact that he'd be open to a fight with Jon Jones. It's kind of the first time we've ever heard him sort of discuss it. What would you think if you saw Rob move up to light heavyweight and sort of try and get this fight with Jon Jones? Do you think he'd have much of a chance at winning that?
That's a tough fight to favor Rob, and I like the kid, but John's he's a tactical dude. He's got a lot of things that might work against him, but I never know. Rob's grown. He's came a long ways. He's got some wrestling abilities. Has surprised me.
That would be exciting though for you, right? The fight that never happened. Imagine if you guys met at 205.
There's a lot of fights that we could make in 205. Hey, as long as we're not cutting down to 85, we can make anything happen at 205. I think everyone's venturing these days, So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna focus on what's ahead.
Wow. Well, you mentioned Jan before, so let's go there. Obviously, the fight is still a while away, but right now, everything that you know about Jan and with the proper time to prepare at 100%, how do you see your performance going at UFC 239? Obviously, we're still a couple of months away, but what do you see it sort of playing out like?
I see first or second round finish, a Jan Blachowicz.
Is there sort of a competition there? Because obviously you mentioned Thiago Santos getting the win over him. Are you sort of trying to make a statement here to sort of, prove that you are better than the other guys that came from middleweight and are now fighting at 205 and are fighting Jon Jones?
No more statements made, man. I'm gonna go fight my fight. The statement will be made as long as I follow my plans and don't overthink it, don't overdo it. Just walk forward, put it on him, do what I do, go back to a little older style of me. I think as the years went on of the weight cut, it kind of depleted me, and I had to rely more technically and get around. Now my strength is back, and I'm moving forward, and I'm putting it going straight through people. That's what I'm doing.
This sounds like vintage Luke Rockhold. You sound like the Rockhold of the Strikeforce days, the insanely hungry Rockhold chasing world titles.
I feel like Strikeforce challengers. I feel like I got my strength back from challengers. I'm fucking coming forward. I'm killing motherfuckers. That's what we're doing.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can't wait to see you return, Luke. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Last question, a question that I've been wondering since you've sort of mentioned it at a couple of interviews. How strong is really Robbie Lawler in the weight room? You've mentioned that he's an animal in there and you guys work out together. What kind of strength are we looking at here?
Rob, he can go for his size and what he's doing. He's the hardest worker in there. He believes in these weights. They do make a difference, but I'm more of the technical aspect. I like the martial arts side, but this man is in there every day, and he's got me in a few realms, but I'm catching up. I'm taking him out. Rob's an animal, though. You can see it. You can see the benefits of what he's doing. I mean, you haven't seen that before in Robin. And he threw around Askren. Askren didn't ask for that fight again. You heard about that. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But he's a tough motherfucker. It's for all of us.
I just want to know if he's going to teach you the FU that he did to Askren in the middle of that octagon, where he picked him up and suplexed him. Because I want to see Luke Rockhold do that. Yeah, on the UFC 239. Luke, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure to follow Luke on Twitter and Instagram. At Luke Rockhold, of course, one of the most exciting new prospects. At light heavyweight makes his light heavyweight debut UFC 239. Luke, thank you so much for coming onto the program, and let the Submission Radio reservation team know when we need to look at booking a restaurant for you, because we've got a whole team ready 24 hours a day, all year long.
My guys. July 6th. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you so much, Luke. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Bye. And there he is, guys. Luke Rockhold himself, kindly coming back to Submission Radio, gracing us with his presence. What a show, man. A lot of fun times, Dennis. I feel like a lot of classic moments. Luke Rockhold talking about Matty Matheson. The man was on a date. I don't know if he said it during the interview, but he was actually on a date during that interview. So that's pretty exciting stuff. Talked about a whole bunch of things. Robert Whittaker talking about moving up potentially at some point, fighting Jon Jones. Iaquinta, we got to technically watch the hockey with him. Brett Okamoto being as cool as ever, saying a lot of great things. It's a fun show. It's a sexy episode.
Absolutely. I mean, you just mentioned it. You get to go behind the scenes to Brett Okamoto's house, Mr. Freeze himself. You get to see Luke Rockhold on his date. You get to hear from the man then. And, of course, you get to watch a live reaction to the Islanders winning from Al. What else could you want? Robert Whittaker on Skype. It's been a fantastic program. A quick reminder for everybody out there that we won't be around for 2 weeks. Casper's going to Thailand. I'm going to New Zealand practically after this episode, but we want to thank everybody. A quick reminder, jump on social media, like, share, comment, give us your thoughts about everything on this episode, everything you enjoyed, any crazy thoughts. We love talking to you guys, and with that, we will be back in a couple of weeks. Take care, guys.